The radio industry held its big awards night this week, and Southern Cross Austereo and Fairfax were the big winners. James has the rundown of the night. James, how did it go? Who were the big winners of the night?
Yeah, as you say, Southern Cross Austereo did very well. They employ, I think it's a bit over 1 in 3 people in the industry, so they're always going to win a lot of awards. They certainly did. You know, they're big names. Kyle and Jackie O, Hamish and Andy. In fact, between the two of them, they've shared the biggest FM award for all 6 of the last 6 years. They've each won 3 times. They did very well. But 3AW winning a lot in the AM sort of stakes. Neil Mitchell won an award, Darren Hinch won an award, 2UE picked up a couple, Steve Blander for newsreader, Tim McDermott, their station manager, general manager of the year. So yeah, they did quite well too.
Big night. News as well, Ugly Phil is returning to DMG radio.
Yeah, he has 9 lives, doesn't he?
Yeah.
This is how every few months we update Phil's latest movement. He was over in Perth earlier this year. He's come back. He's rejoined DMG radio, where he used to be there on air at Nova. He was one of the original Nova DJs in the Sydney market. So he's up at their Central Coast station now doing Drive.
And we've also had news that Southern Cross Austereo's opened a new Gold Coast media unit. Yeah,
I got in to see their, it's a new sort of broadcast facility, if you like. They used to call it their radio centre up there. It's moved from Southport down to Broadbeach on the coast there. A massive facility, state-of-the-art stuff they put in. And they've also got in TV studios now. They're very much looking to get into that sort of a content supplier with audio and video.
News as well, the Walkley nominations are out for 2011. Who's up for an award?
Sure, yep. Sort of the big name journalists from the major newspapers. The ABC's done very well. I think there's about 80 awards in all. ABC's been nominated for about 24 of them. Fairfax and News up for around 20 each. People who sort of missed out, 9 didn't get a gong this year. They did get a highly commended. Fox Sports is in there with a nomination. 3AW, 10 got 3.
All right, let's just turn now to television, and the hugely successful Grand Designs program has been expanding into live events, with the first home show being held in Sydney this weekend. And the host of the UK show, Kevin McLeod, is out in Australia for the event. And James, you've been chatting to Kevin and some interesting thoughts about how the program in the UK began and his role as host and how he grew the audience.
Sure, yeah, it was fascinating to talk to him. The show's been on air for a decade over there as an Australian edition now we've talked about in the past. We started off our interview asking him about, did the show take long to find an audience?
Here's what he had to say.
It took a little while, took 2 series, but it's done the same thing. I know that the Australian series that Peter Madson's doing found its feet with the first series. He's now doing a 2nd series, and they're commissioning more. And as with us, it grew. It's very important. Television works, of course, in an entirely different timescale and in a different kind of way to the real world. It makes many, many different demands, chief of which is that the real world bends in order to subject itself to the schedules of television. So commissioning editors would say, yeah, we'll have this series, and we'd say, okay, fine, we'll make it, expecting to be able to see finished houses. Of course, it rolls on and on and on, and then in the real world things overrun, and in the real world it takes 18 months, not a year. And the joy of both what's happening here in Australia now and how we work in the UK is that we have a rolling production. So we're filming 20+ projects at any one time. We're commissioned 3 or 4 years in advance. We have a permanent office, which is unheard of in television, with permanent staff working on the show. And that longevity and that continuity, I cannot emphasise enough how important that is in terms of delivering programmes of real quality that reflect what happens in the real world. If you don't do that, you end up creating artifice purely for the sake of the screen, and that tells. You can tell that.
I think you're probably partly responsible for this genre to sort of grow quality programming. There's more of it around now. Food's the other one that's done very well, but it seems to be quite. It's really taken off in the last.
It has. It's surprising, isn't it? Because I mean, to make a building takes 18 months or 2 years or 4 years in some cases. To cook a meal takes less than 30 minutes. So you can almost do food in real time. And the appeal of food and television is it's delicious. Who wouldn't want to talk about it and enjoy it? And you can sort of you can fit the timescale of the food preparation into the programme really easily. Galloping Gourmet of the 1960s, Graham Kerr managed to do that live. We couldn't build a house live. But in a way, what we make is a very, very different kind of television. It's slow burn, if you excuse the analogy. It's very long term. It's more like old-fashioned filmmaking or documentary making. We glue them together and edit them and out of them comes this series of lots of different films.
Sure. Now, you're in Australia for Grand Designs Live.
Yeah.
Tell us the commercial impact that's had on the sort of renovation and building industry in the UK.
I think it's had a big effect in terms of breaking down barriers between suppliers, constructors, architects and consumers. So, for example, when we started the series 10 years ago, I think there was a general suspicion about architects and architecture. And indeed, architects had a bit of a suspicion about what we were doing. That has gone, I mean, completely. So we now have, for example, at Grand Designs Live, you'll find this weekend we have a section which is an advice centre where punters can bring drawings, photographs, ideas for what they might do, maybe just a set of plans or a picture of a site they're thinking of building, or an idea for an extension or a loft conversion, and find a project manager sitting at a table, or an architect or a surveyor or another professional who can help them and give them advice. And we have, for example, in the UK, we now have architects who take stands selling their services out there, as we do have builders, and we have suppliers selling their products direct to retail customers who visit the show. And we've tried very hard to not simply replicate the high street, so that when you visit the show, the stands that you see and the companies who are there are people who might normally deal with the trade or who aren't normally high profile in the high street. And so you're able to then talk directly to the design team, for example, of a bathroom company about how they make their stuff and about the values that go into it. So I like that way that the show kind of shortcuts those relationships.
Sure. I'm just wondering, one of the learnings from the success of the format and the longevity of the brand is perhaps you've never deviated much. The core offering hasn't changed. You basically go and watch somebody build a house.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? I thought we would run out of ideas, and I thought I'd run out of things to say. But extraordinarily enough, 13 years on, we're still making it, still enjoying it, still finding extraordinary projects, the likes of which we haven't seen before. It sort of demonstrates that this is, of course, the last big adventure that we all imagined we could go on. It is something we can share with these people as a result. And it would seem that human ingenuity knows no bounds, and that there is no finite end to what we might achieve. And as time rolls on, of course, I think also taste changes and people's ideas change, technology changes. So there's an endless supply of interesting projects.
Time now for a look at the ratings. This is for week 42, starting with Free to Air first. Packed to the rafters in #1 spot. And at #4, Doc Martin for the
Doc
ABC,
Martin,
James.
Yeah, we've highlighted that before. It's just the most watched show on the ABC these days, I think. So it's straight back in there on a Saturday night too. It's interesting.
Very popular. And just turning the page, you can see there X Factor for 7 on Monday night, coming in at
Never
#6.
thought we'd see the Renovators in the top 10, but there you go.
At #9. And now to subscription television for week 42. And the Rugby World Cup, huge ratings with the semi-final that the Wallabies are in over the weekend.
Disappointing result for Australia, of course, but new record audience, over 700,000 people watching on Fox Sports, also a big audience on Channel 9. So it's interesting they can break that record, as we said before, while it's a simulcast.
And that hasn't quite appeared yet in these figures, but we'll see them
we'll see that next
week. And just turning the page there, you can see some of the other big winners. America's Got Talent there on Fox 8 at #9. In other news, in TV land, Sevens ended its pack to the rafters before the end of survey. It's a pretty confident move.
Yeah, well, still 4 weeks to go. The Rafters has got one more episode, then there'll be another 4 weeks of survey, But Seven thinks, look, we're that far ahead. Let's keep keep something up our sleeve for next year, so that'll enable them to get a longer run next year, I guess, if they need to do that.
Now, news too that 9 could possibly be making changes to its morning lineup, or will they?
Yeah, I don't know. This is a speculation. We're talking about Kerry-Anne Kennelly and her future as the host, I guess, of their morning show. It doesn't rate particularly well against the Seven offering, but I think it's still financially successful, brings in good money. They'd certainly like a bigger audience, but there was a bit of fever that Katrina Roundtree might replace her a couple of years ago. That's happened again. So whether anything will happen this time, I'm not too sure.
Has she pretty much ruled it out, Katrina, or...?
Well, she sort of said it's unlikely, but she hasn't come out and said no. So I think if given her the opportunity, she'd probably do it. It's not something you get every day, the chance to host a daily live program.
one to watch. And just finally, we've been hearing as well that Network 10's bringing back It's a Knockout.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? They cancelled George Negus and bring back It's a Knockout.
Yeah.
But that'll be a sort of a summer show. It's going to be brand funded. I think McDonald's is the company behind it. So Charlie Robinson, Brad McEwen and HG from Roy and HG. So they're a quirky mix of characters hosting that one. Be interesting to see how it goes.
Yeah, doing all sorts of weird things they used to do. James, appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Bridie.
James Manning, editor and publisher of Mediaweek. That's all we've got time for this week. Thanks for your company.